right, guys, I'm about on. Good evening and welcome to Science Banner. Just checking echo and other problems here. Feel like I've got a little bit of echo. Does that help? That should be better. Good. Some of that might be time delay. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. All right, I'll just do a sound check. and hope everybody can hear me. Who hears an echo? Just asking if you all hear an echo or it's just me. Let me see. Checking. One. Okay. Sounds good where you are. Okay. It's just basically something going on my end, and that should be fine. It's probably something a little strange on this end. You think the mic is up? Better? Sounds a little better. Um, and I'll make sure that Restream isn't doing it, because that could be where it's at. Nope. Okay. I think we're good. If the sound goes bad or something, just kind of let me know on your end, and we'll deal with it from there. But I think everything else is pretty good. Welcome to Zion's Banner. Uh, I like the sound quality to be pretty good, and occasionally we get stuck. So, Brady, let me got a little more problem tonight. Okay, that should be good. That should be better. Just make sure that you can hear me on your end. We're going to get started. It's exciting. It's just interesting working with the equipment, and it's probably just a matter of what I'm hearing versus the time. So I don't want to take a lot of time away and make this a less interesting broadcast tonight. So I'm going to keep going with it. Again, I can't turn the mic much further down without creating some problems here. And it could be a matter of the audio input. So that's a little better. I don't hear it as much. And so if the sound is good, you can just let me know. It's probably an input capture problem. And so that's where we're going to leave things. And that should give a good balance. Okay. Let's go with it. Let's get started, because I don't want to take up all our time doing this. And it really makes the program look a little less professional. But I think it's a matter of, I still hear that. That is really bothering me tonight. And it's such a great broadcast that I don't know why that's doing that. I'm going to go all test. Now the sound is way up. So I'm going to bring this down and see what happens. Okay, that is way up. I'm in the red. There we go. That should do it. Okay, little problem with the mixer tonight. And so I'm sorry about that. By the way, if you're here, click the like. I hope we get a lot of views despite some of the glitches that we've had. Usually it means that something else is mic'd when I get that sort of feedback. And so that's what it usually indicates. But I'm not sure why that would do that. Everything is where it should be. And so, okay. So let's get started. And Sorry about the little glitches along the way. I know that they make things a little less professional, but there's a time delay, and so sometimes that throws me a little bit. We're going to get started tonight. Do hit the like button. Some nights are just better than others. And so I think a lot of times it has to do with the sound and the mic. But you should see, whoops, I don't want to lose his picture because it's pretty important. Sunday is a big day, and you guys have the chance to go ahead and tune in to a different program. There we go. That should do it. And so I'm going to encourage you that me and Anthony Rogers are on at 5 o'clock doing part one of a series on the Old Testament and the Trinity. We're going to be looking at some things related to that, getting an intro to that, and then you have a link. Now, it uses Ring, which is like a Zoom-like application. It's free. There we go. Okay. That probably has a lot to do with things. There we go. All right, so this is the exciting news. It takes nothing to download Ring. And so you can join me and Anthony Rogers at 5 o'clock Central, which is earlier than 7, and we'll be starting a discussion on the Trinity. This is ministry to Muslims, and we've been asked to do this series. Let's talk about what we're going to be doing tonight and switch things over and get going. There we go. I need split screen, and we're going to get our PowerPoint started. But that's an exciting opportunity, and so I'm letting you know about it because that's something I usually can't offer, and I can. So let's get going. There's our split screen. We're going to be dealing with a recent broadcast by Jews for Judaism, and these guys are throwing more of their stuff up, or I'm seeing it. It's very Singer-esque. And but it's not quite the way Singer is. So the temperament's different, but some of the material's the same. And we're going to look at his recent attack on the virgin birth and start dealing with that. So I'm going to bring the PowerPoint up and start switching the slides here. And we're going to go to our detractors corner because that's what we really need to do. He makes the argument that Jesus fulfilled none of the Messianic prophecies, absolutely none. And he starts by attacking the virgin birth. And that's kind of where he begins. And so that's what we're going to be dealing with. So let me go to our detractors corner here and get that up and running. There we go. And we're going to bring up the sound. Now let me know if you get no sound on him. This should end up working. And you're going to hear him. Now we always go to the... Here we go.
Was Jesus the Messiah? Let's examine the facts. The missionaries claim that Jesus fulfilled all the prophecies pertaining to the Messiah. The truth, however, is that he did not fulfill even one of the important prophecies. If Christians merely believed that Jesus was their Messiah, this belief would be of little concern to us as Jews. Their claim, however, is not that he is the Christian Messiah, but our Messiah, the Messiah of the Jews, the Messiah foretold by the Jewish prophets. Christians then attempt to prove this belief by quoting our Bible. Certain Christian missionary groups have set up front organizations like Jews for Jesus, through which they entice naive Jews to Christianity with an old and discredited argument. Don't become a Christian, they will argue. Remain a Jew. However, while you remain a loyal Jew, accept Jesus as your Messiah. In view of the confusion created by many false claims of missionary groups, Jews must be armed with the facts to substantiate our conviction that everything Christians claim for Jesus as the Jewish Messiah is false. The following few items will point out some of the glaring discrepancies and inconsistencies in the missionaries' arguments. Item 1. The Jewish Messiah is to be a human being born naturally to a husband and wife. He is not to be a god or a man born of supernatural or virgin birth, as the Christians claim. Nowhere in our Bible does it say that the Messiah would be a god or godlike. The very idea that God would take on human form is repulsive to Jews because it contradicts our concept of God as being above and beyond the limitations of the human body and situation. Jews believe that God alone is to be worshipped, not a being who is his creation, be he an angel, saint, or even the Messiah himself. Nowhere does the Bible predict that the Messiah will be born to a virgin. In fact, virgins never give birth anywhere in the Bible.
Got it.
This idea is to be found only in pagan mythology. To the Jewish mind, the very idea that God would plant a seed in a woman is unnecessary and unnatural. After all, what is accomplished by this claim? What positive purpose does it serve? The claim that Mary did not have natural relations with her husband must have made the Jews of that time suspect her of wrongdoing. The New Testament, the Christian Bible, admits as much when it says, "Then Joseph, Mary's husband, being a just man and not willing to shame her in public, decided to divorce her quietly." The whole idea of a virgin birth serves no purpose except to attract pagans to Christianity. Item 2. The Jewish Messiah is expected to return the Jews to their land. Jesus was born while the Jews still lived in their land, before they had gone into exile. He could not restore them to the land because they were still living in it. Item 3. The true Messiah is to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, but Jesus lived while the temple was still standing. Item 4. The Jewish Bible says that the Messiah will redeem Israel. In the case of Jesus, the very opposite took place. Not long after his death, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem was destroyed. Jerusalem was laid to waste, and the Jews went into exile to begin a 2,000-year-long night of persecution, largely at the hands of the followers of this self-styled Messiah. Item 5. The prophets in the Bible foretold that when the Messiah comes, all the nations of the world will unite to acknowledge and worship the one true God. The knowledge of God will fill the earth. The world will be filled with the knowledge of God as the waters of the sea. Isaiah 11, verse 9. Nothing of this nature took place following the death of Jesus. On the contrary, Islam developed and became the religion of the Arabs and many other nations. Christianity broke up into many conflicting sects, which were constantly at war with each other. And a large part of the world continued to worship idols. Even today, The world is far from the worship of one God. Item 6. When the true Messiah comes, his influence will extend over all peoples who will worship God at the temple in Jerusalem. The prophet says, "For my house will become the house of prayer for all nations." This has obviously not yet taken place, and therefore the Messiah has not yet come. Item 7. During the time of the Messiah, a new spirit will rule the world, and man will cease committing sins and crimes. This will especially apply to the Jews. The Torah says that God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your children to love God. The prophets taught, "And your people are all righteous. They will inherit the earth forever. In that day, I will seek the sins of Israel, and there will be none. I will give you a new heart and a new spirit, and you will obey my laws and commandments and do them." Soon after the time of Jesus, ignorance of God and even ignorance of science and philosophy filled the earth as the Dark Ages overtook the world. Item 8. The true Messiah is to reign as King of the Jews. Jesus' career, as described in the New Testament, lasted all of 3 years, at the end of which he was crucified by the Romans as a common criminal. He never functioned as anything but a wandering preacher and faith healer. Certainly he held no official position or exercised any rule of any kind. Item 9. During the time of the Messiah, prophecy will return to the Jewish people, and the presence of God will dwell amongst us. "And after that I will pour my spirit on all of mankind, and your sons and daughters will prophesy." Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 27. These predictions, too, are yet to be fulfilled. Item 10. One of the Messiah's major tasks is to bring peace to the entire world. In the time of the Messiah, there are to be no more wars, and the manufacture of arms will cease. The prophet Isaiah says, "And they will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war."
Okay, we're back. Um, and I think I figured out what's going on with the sound, but there it just is something strange today that seems to be happening. We went a little further with him than I had wanted to, but I wanted to get past the very beginning with him as far as what he's dishing out and what's going on here, um, and what's ending up happening here. And so I wanted to go ahead and take care of that. Um, let's get to the PowerPoint and deal with it. Now, we're not going to handle everything he dishes out on this first time, but what we are going to do is take a look at some of his argumentation. Now, this is typical, again, Jewish polemic rhetoric. So, don't be surprised with this. This is like fairly typical stuff. But I wanted you to see the extremity of his claim. Jesus fulfilled none of the prophecies. None. Not one. Absolutely none of these. And so that's his essential claim. You could see the direct tack on the virgin birth as proving nothing. Let's start with what I consider to be a little nasty ad hominem. Now, ad hominem is when I argue something's true because, obviously this person couldn't be right about anything. They're dirty and nasty and icky, and I bring the attack against the person. It comes from 2 words. It really means against the man, and the argument is being placed against the man. And he starts by painting this very big conspiracy picture. And I really want to take a look at this because this is a typical emotional argument, nasty rhetoric that's brought against missionaries and doesn't really need to be there. And so this is really ugly. He's arguing that missionaries have set up certain front organizations, like the clandestine offshore accounts, at in some strange paradise island here, some secret clandestine Illuminati type organizations here that are front organizations, as if there's a conspiracy on the part of missionaries through some shadow or puppet organization. Really, seriously. This passes for argumentation. Unfortunately, it inflames Jewish emotions. And so that's what he's really kind of shooting for, is to inflame the emotions at this point. Um, and I really want to take care of this because, I wasn't told that I was part of a secret organization, and I haven't received my double zero. So, I'm not like, 006 or 005 here, you know and I want to deal with this. Now understand that this appeals to the Jewish boogeyman of the missionary. They have these images of missionaries due to the Spanish Inquisition and other things, and this appeals to them. So he's really ramping up the emotion here, and doesn't begin with an argument that's based on high. I'd like to calmly and rationally go through these arguments. Now, admittedly, these are very emotional things, and I understand that. But the idea that I'm part of some super puppet group here with my 7 and my decoder ring, I haven't got my decoder ring either, really sort of has to be dealt with because it's such a horrible caricature. Missionaries didn't set up mission organizations. Missions organizations were founded to allow missionaries to carry on their work. Now, admittedly, that some of the people who set up missionaries may have started as missionaries, but they wanted to have others working, and so they ended up creating organizations that could help other missionaries as well as themselves. Um, in the case of Chosen People Ministries, it was set up by a Jew, not Gentile Christians. You notice how it's evil Gentile Christians here who have done this. Actually, Chosen People was set up by an Orthodox rabbi, uh, which is really ironic. Jews for Jesus was set up by a gentleman named Moish Rosen. Catch that last name, Moish Rosen, who was originally with ABMJ and then branched out. So, first of all, a lot of modern Jewish mission organizations after World War II, when Jewish missions work in Europe ceased, was actually set up by Jewish believers, fellow Jews, in order to reach their people. So that attack really is historically inaccurate. Uh, Clandestine groups, hey guys, if you want to see the purpose statement of Chosen People, you can go right on their website, www.chosenpeople.com. They have a thing you could check on their mission statement. You can check on their financial policies. You can check on everything. Everything's out there and above board. You can go to Jews for Jesus website, and their statement of faith is there. There's nothing hidden here. Okay, you simply have to go on the internet. You can get the whole history of these organizations. By the way, their Jewish founders are perfectly named. So no one's keeping any secrets here. Um, if I did that with rabbinical organizations and I said, the rabbis who want to enslave Jewish people have set up clandestine organizations like Jews for Judaism. Um, Or worse yet, the rabbis that hate Gentiles have set up these organizations to keep Jews away from Gentiles. If I use that sort of language, it would be considered anti Semitic and somewhat hateful. So I don't want to belabor this point, but I do want you to notice that he doesn't start with the rational arguments. He starts with the clandestine stuff. And anytime Chosen People would like to send me a decoder ring, I would take that in the mail. So this is not really acceptable sort of argumentation. Let's get into his real argumentation and take a look at what it looks like. Our detractor states it would be different matter if Christians regarded Jesus as the Christian Messiah. I mean, that would be okay, but regarding him as the Jewish Messiah using the Jewish scriptures is just totally outrageously wrong. I mean, how dare they? Let's take a look at this sort of argumentation here and see if there's anything really rational. He's creating sort of a false dilemma as if you could have a Jewish Messiah and a Christian Messiah. It would be okay if Jesus was simply regarded as the Christian Messiah and not as the Jewish Messiah, as if there's some sort of choice here. Like one option would be okay and one wouldn't, and both options exist. And as Dr. Michael Brown pointed out when he did a skit, you don't get that sort of option with Jesus. Okay, if Jesus' claims are true, we have a problem here. There's no such thing as a Christian Messiah that's not the Jewish Messiah. Go figure. New. If Jesus is the Messiah, then he is the Messiah for all. You don't have a Messiah for different groups. Um, and if he's not the Jewish Messiah, then he's not Messiah at all, or for any. You don't get a choice. He's either the Messiah, and that's the Jewish Messiah, or he's no Messiah at all. So it wouldn't be okay for Christians to say he's the Christian Messiah, because they would be claiming that he's the Jewish Messiah if they claim he's the Messiah at all. There isn't 51 flavors of Messiah. But worse yet, they use the Jewish scriptures to do it. Oh, please use the Jewish scriptures to share with your Jewish friend. Tell other people to use the Jewish scriptures with your Jewish friend. Somebody recently had a great talk in the New York area with a Jewish person connecting the New Testament to the Old Testament, and he said, "Wow, that's exactly what Jews for Judaism doesn't want you to do." But they say, essentially, that's off limits. You're stealing our book. Now, admittedly, before I was saved, I had some of that feeling. There was a little of that there. I'm going to be honest with you, but it's illegitimate. Okay? They're saying Christians and followers of Jesus can't make use of the Jewish scriptures since it belongs to the Jews and they represent a group contrary to the Jews. Now, this needs to be really, really hammered home with your Jewish friend. I've spent years hammering it home. It needs to be hammered home. It is one of the most important things you can end up doing. Okay? The first Christians were all faithful Jews. They were Jews who were faithful to the scriptures. They did not represent a separate religion. They were not a separate religion purloining sacred writings that they had no right to. They had every right to those sacred writings. They were Jews operating within Judaism, interpreting the Jewish writings and writing Jewish writings. See, let's get this down. And this needs to, I would say this to a Jew for Judaism. Guess what? The New Testament is a Jewish writing. And anybody who looks at it, takes it seriously, and sees how it's written would come to that conclusion that essentially you have Jewish writers writing and defining themselves. So really, detractor, get over it. The scriptures don't belong to you alone. They never really were meant to belong to you alone. God meant the scriptures to come to you to be shared with the whole world. Israel was meant to be a blessing to the whole world. To them were entrusted the oracles of God, not for themselves alone. And so you just need to get over it. You have faithful Jews within the first century who decided to follow a Jewish man claiming to be the Jewish Messiah. Now, he was more than a man, but let's not pretend he wasn't a man, because that's a heresy of another color. And they were writing Jewish writings and interpreting things in a very Jewish way. And you're just going to have to get over it. We're going to continue to use the front parts of our Bible, the first 2/3, and we have every right to do that. So, that's very nice and all, but you don't have the sole claim to those writings. Those First Testament, New Testament writers have just as much claim to those writings as you do. And so that's not a very legitimate argument historically. And I've said it over and over again. There is ample evidence that Judaism was considered, Christianity, Messianic faith was considered a sect of Judaism, even within the rabbinical writings. A heretical sect, but a sect nevertheless. Why would you put a synagogue malediction against the followers of Jesus if they weren't Jews going to synagogue? What would that do? What would that accomplish? That's an illegitimate argument. But let's get on to the virgin birth and really dig into the theology here. Now, he makes some points, and hopefully you got them out of the clip. Okay. First, the virgin birth is unnatural and unacceptable. Remember that he states, if you heard it, and it should have gone long enough, he states very clearly that Jewish thought would never allow or conceive of a virgin birth because it is unnatural. In fact, he even uses the term God putting his seed in Mary. Now, that really cracks me up because God doesn't have seed. Okay. I mean, that makes it sound like, with the way a Muslim makes it sound, as if it was some sort of physical sexual act here. That's not what's going on. God did not need to place, he doesn't have seed. And so it's an unnatural act, it's an unacceptable act. The virgin birth serves no purpose but to attract pagans. See, it's all a front move to bring the pagans in so they would all accept Jesus. That's essentially what he's saying. This is a very clever maneuver on the part of these Christians that represent an entirely separate religion to gain pagan acceptance. And so they add this virgin birth story to bring all the pagans in because obviously no Jewish person would ever think like this. And then finally, nowhere do the Hebrew scriptures predict a virgin birth. Now, we are going to be honest with the text tonight. I loved my time on Phil Fox's show because we talked about how Messianic prophecy works. And it's not as easy to just turn to a slam dunk verse. Okay? It's not that simple. And, when I first was a believer, I struggled with the fact that I, I did see verses that clearly, Jesus fulfilled. But I wanted the slam dunk verse for my parents and my family and all of that, and it's not that simple. Um, so let's look at some of these arguments. The detractor states Judaism could never tolerate a superhuman or divine Messiah. Notice that's used all the time. Messiah has to be purely human. Now, the reason I start here is because the virgin birth and its purpose is directly connected to the idea that Messiah would not be merely human. See, if he was merely human, he'd just have two parents. So we must establish, if this premise is going to look at the purpose of the virgin birth, that Messiah would be two things. He would be more than human and he would be human. Because the virgin birth is going to help us with that. If he was merely human, you're right, the virgin birth might not make a lot of sense. But if he has to be human and more than human at the same time, then we go ahead and we can then see a purpose for the virgin birth that has nothing to do with attracting pagans. Let me lay it out for you like this. The Messiah must be superhuman. That means being more than human, okay, not being Superman. Um, all right. The virgin birth best explains the human, superhuman nature of Messiah. And I said alongside his humanity, but it explains how he can be both superhuman, more than human, and human at the same time, because he's got to be both. Therefore, the virgin birth serves a purpose. Okay? And that's what you need to understand here. The virgin birth serves a purpose because of the unique characteristics which surround Messiah's birth. So if the virgin birth serves a purpose, then it isn't just there to attract pagans. It's not a device that was made up just to get pagans in, if it serves a vital purpose in reconciling characteristics of Messiah. Now, where did I get the idea that Messiah would have to be more than human? Well, first place, we always got to go with the scriptures. Okay, that's the bottom line. And I said the scriptures and the rabbinical writings allow for a superhuman Messiah by allowing for Messiah's pre-existence. Now, understand that this is a characteristic that is not true of human beings. But where would I get the idea he pre-existed? Well, I'd get it from Micah 2. Now, the reason I put Micah 2:3 is that the numbering is different in the Masoretic text. So let's just be straight about that. The numbering in the Masoretic text is different. So you're looking at a Jewish Bible like a JPS Bible or a stone edition of the scriptures, you're going to see the numberings different. You, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you be little among the thousands of Judah, shall come forth to me one to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth are from of old, from everlasting. They'll look upon me. Yeah, I kind of know where that's going, and I'm not ignoring it. Um, I like the question mark there. Um, it was just quick for me to go to Isaiah because of the unique phrase "mime kidim olam." Okay, the phrase there is "mime kidim olam," and so that's a very interesting phrase. Uh, Olam can mean in perpetuity, but when you put the phrase together, the olam is what's being emphasized about olam is not those shades of meaning that indicate a perpetuity, but what is being emphasized by olam, if it's put with the kidim, mime kidim olam, is that olam should be understood as eternity at that point. Some verses will say everlasting, but he's going forth from everlasting. That means he came out of everlasting. Whatever everlasting is in the past, that's where he came from. He came out of everlasting. Now, you know, we're going to get to the bottom line of this, but the hysterical thing is he's telling me what Jewish thought would never accept. It would never accept a supernatural Messiah. It would never accept a superhuman Messiah. Never, ever would Jewish thought accept that. Jewish thought doesn't accept it. Which Jewish thought? I see the payas, I see the long beard, I see the Dauk outfit. Clearly, we're talking Orthodox Judaism, so let's go to Pesquita Rabbah. You will find from the very beginning of creation of the world, Messiah had already come into being. For he existed in God's thought even before the world was created. Of his existence, the scriptures say, there shall come now. I love this argument because it's not even the argument I would make. Here's the rabbis making another argument that you could use that I never even thought of. Look at this. This is what they're doing. There shall come forth a shoot from the stock of Jesse. That's Isaiah 11:1. It's not Micah 5:2. It does not say there shall come forth, but rather there came forth. So when I read that, I'm making sure I read it. And there came forth a shoot from the stock of Jesse. And so the rabbis are pointing, it doesn't say there shall come forth, indicating that that will happen later, but there already came forth, which means it already happened before Isaiah gave the prophecy. In other words, Messiah already existed because there came forth a shoot from the rod of Jesse before Messiah was even born. Now, that's an incredibly interesting argument, but it's not me making it. It's not Gentile Christians making it. It's an Orthodox, it's a Jewish rabbinical source. It's a Jewish source. Now, there are plenty of other places where this goes on. So this isn't the only place. But look, is it the secret missionary society again? I keep harping on this because this is a writing that he's supposed to respect. Okay? This is a Yemenite midrash. Now, admittedly, the Yemenites are, part of the diaspora here, but I just love this. This is really interesting. Um, yes, Jeremiah 23:6 has to do with a divine name, not necessarily pre-existence, but yes, you could use it to show divinity, which would also do the same thing. So you can go about it from the divinity aspect. Right now, I'm just going about it from the weirdness of the fact, from pre-existence. That would be another way to go about it. And we have an episode that deals with Jeremiah 23:5 and 6 because there are arguments against it. So if you haven't seen that, please check out the list of videos. That one was really good. And there were some infographics with it that were really kind of nice. That I really kind of worked hard on in Logos to create the infographics. Um, this is a Yemenite midrash. In the future, the Holy One, now this is really wild, okay? In the future, the Holy One, blessed be He, will sit Messiah in this supernalt yeshiva. That's like really fancy language here. That's like the supernatural heavenly school of study here. And they will call him Lord just as they call the Creator. Now there's your Jeremiah 23:6. So someone brought up 23 5 and 6. Remember, the Mesorite numbering is a little different. So someone's even pointing out that the name our Lord, the Lord our righteousness, which is what Messiah will be called, is actually what a Yemenite midrash calls him, which is really hysterical. Look who's saying this. Okay? Now, we know the scriptures indicate that Messiah will pre-exist. We know human beings don't pre-exist. Therefore, Messiah can't be merely human. But he still must be human because he has to be a son of David. So you need a human son of David who's more than human. The virgin birth explains how Messiah can be physically a son of David and not necessarily be only a son of David. So the virgin birth serves a clear positive purpose. By the way, if you're looking for QED, quod erat demonstratum, thus it is proven in Latin. All right? So the idea that the virgin birth is just a contrived thing in order to bring pagans in, no. Scripturally, the virgin birth, or I should say the virgin birth, answers some vital characteristics of Messiah and how they fit together that the scriptures give him. In other words, you have biblical characteristics of Messiah and they're scriptural, and the virgin birth explains how they come together. Okay, but that's not going to be good enough, right? The virgin birth is unnatural. Now, that's my favorite objection. I absolutely love the virgin birth is unnatural. It couldn't happen. It's unnatural. All miraculous signs are unnatural in that they don't happen every day. I laughed when I heard this argument because it was just so funny to me. Let's see. Miracles are unnatural, therefore they can't happen, and they're unacceptable to Jewish people. Oh, really? Well, by this argument, the parting of the Red Sea is unnatural, therefore it's automatically ruled out and it never happened. Jewish people shouldn't accept it. It's unnatural. The sea doesn't usually part, right? That's a ridiculous argument. It isn't anti-natural. Now, what do I mean by that? God is not violating his character in any way, shape, or form to do this. If God can part the Red Sea and make the sun stand still, why can't he super intervene in the birth process in such a way as to create a virgin birth? Why is one acceptable and the others aren't? Now, aside from the fact that he wants to sexualize the virgin birth, which is ridiculous, and it's the exact same thing Muslims do, God, who spoke the universe in existence, could simply say, boom, and there it is. Okay. He is treating the virgin birth as a sexual sort of act, and that doesn't need to be. So that's just baggage. Now, I do see those comments. We'll go back to some of them. There's one really interesting there by John Williams. That's kind of a fascinating comment. Worth going back to. Now for the most complicated objection. Okay, the scriptures in no way state Messiah will be born of a virgin. Now, this is because of the meaning of Alma and the situation it puts there. Okay. Now I want to have some real fun with this. Messiah did not fulfill a single messianic prophecy because one of the reasons is the virgin birth wasn't predicted by Scripture. Now I want you to listen to this reasoning for a second because it's really rather weak and crazy. Okay. He's guilty of an incredible oversimplification here. He says that Isaiah 53 can't predict a virgin birth because it and so he didn't fulfill any major messianic prophecy at all. Any. Not he fulfilled a few, any. And I put up what an oversimplification is, and it bypasses so much information it's not even funny. So let's look at this fallacy. Let's say for just a split second that Isaiah 7:14 was only talking about Messiah being born of a young woman.
Messiah would have fulfilled that prophecy simply by being born of Mary. See, either way you slice this thing, Jesus could fulfill Isaiah 7:14. If he was born of Mary and she wasn't a virgin, didn't he fulfill it? Was Mary not a woman? Was she not young? Even if it wasn't a virgin birth, she still would have fulfilled it. If you want to take the argument that this isn't a virginal birth, then he still fulfilled it. And if he fulfilled it by being born of Mary, because it's only talking about a young woman giving birth, then he fulfilled at least one messianic prophecy. Either way you go. I mean, this argument doesn't work no matter what you do with it. But it's worse than that. Okay? He says the Bible does not say anywhere the Messiah will be born of a virgin. Now, the reason that's an oversimplification is he's looking for a verse that says, and the Messiah will be born of a virgin, period. Okay? That's not a legitimate standard to look for. A verse that clearly says, ta-da, the Messiah will be born of a virgin. Get it? That's an oversimplification, too. All right? The Bible doesn't have to specifically say unequivocally that Messiah will be born of a virgin for Isaiah in the 7th chapter and the 14th verse to indicate that Messiah will be born of a virgin. In other words, Isaiah doesn't have to say, and Messiah will be born of a virgin in order for Messiah's birth to be that of a virgin. The real question that needs to be asked, and it's the honest question, is does Isaiah 7:14 indicate that Messiah's birth will have the characteristics that are fulfilled by a virgin birth? If Messiah's birth has the characteristics that are fulfilled by a virgin birth, then indeed the virgin birth is a fulfillment of prophecy. Do you see how that works? Now, on Phil's show, we got to discuss a lot of that. The way prophecy actually works. So he's asking the wrong question. He's looking for this direct statement that, is unequivocally states, behold, Messiah will be born of a virgin. I'm saying that if the qualities of Messiah indicate that that verse should be taken that way, then it should be taken that way. Let's deal with why I think that we'll deal with the word Alma, but there's an important word in here. The birth of this child is a sign. Now we need to understand what a sign is. It's the word oat. Now when oat is used in a prophetic sense, it has the idea of a miraculous sign. I didn't just make that up. Theological Lexicon of the Old Testament, okay, says a somewhat altered usage appears in early prophetic context. Oat legitimizes the prophetic word. It arrives, however, only in the future and is predicted by the prophet. And then it talks about Deuteronomy 13:2 and the corresponding use sometimes of the word bow. The nature of an oat in a prophetic context always indicates a future supernatural sign, and that's what these guys are getting at. So when Isaiah says it will be a sign, it's referring to something supernatural and future to Isaiah. And so that's one reason for believing that this is indeed a supernatural birth and not a normal birth where a virgin shall conceive. And if you make a young woman shall conceive as a supernatural sign. Hey, if a woman giving birth out of wedlock is a supernatural sign, then our cities are filled with supernatural women and incredible miracles. Just find a neighborhood where there are a bunch of unwed mothers, and you got the makings of a supernatural revival. Oat doesn't indicate that sort of regular occurrence. And so in being a sign, already you have an argument that this is a virgin birth. The big argument here has to do with the words Betula and Alma. Now, I've dealt with this before. The argument often used by these guys is basically that Betula always means virgin and Alma does not mean virgin. All right? What he's ignoring is patently false. There isn't a word that indicates a virgin that way in Hebrew. The way Hebrew talks is it talks about marriageable age, non marriageable age, and childhood. In other words, it's age related and whether someone is able to bear children related, maturity related, as opposed to purity related. In fact, that's the way you can remember it. It's maturity related as opposed to purity related. There is no Hebrew word that is used exclusively in terms of purity only that way. Okay? In fact, he says basically that Alma doesn't mean virgin. Alma doesn't mean virgin. It never means virgin. Well, let's see if that sort of argument holds. Now, the plural for Alma is used in Song of Songs to uh, the companions of the woman in Song of Songs, the young maidens who are virgins, unwed, her unmarried attendants, um, her unmarried single girlfriends, if you have it. But that's not the only place it's used of a virgin. It's used of Rebecca prior to her being married to Isaac. See, if it was after she was married to Isaac, you could then say that she knew Isaac, and that would be the end of the argument. But it's used prior to her being married to Isaac. Notice the way it's used in Genesis 24:43 and 44. Behold, I stand by the well, and it shall come to pass that when the virgin comes out to draw water, and I say to her, give me a little water for my pitcher to drink. And she says, drink, and I will draw for your camels also. Let that be the woman who the Lord has appointed for my master. Now he was told to look for an unmarried virgin to bring home to Isaac by Abraham. And so what's so important here that we need to get through is that Rebecca was a virgin prior to her marrying to Isaac, and the term Alma is used of her. It's used of Miriam, who does not marry. Let's look at Exodus 2:8. Go to the maiden, go. So the maiden went and called the child's mother. That's Miriam. She isn't married, and she hadn't been fooling around. So Alma is used of her. So if he's going to argue, okay, that Miriam was unchaste and Rebecca's Isaac's wife was unchaste before she married Isaac, and Abraham had no problem with this, then he would have an argument. But if that's, which is not the case, then Alma has to refer to virgins. Okay, so that doesn't work very well. And so that's not a real legitimate sort of argument to make. But it is the very argument that he is making. And so that is really problematic. Okay, let's kind of shorten this up a little bit. In short, when you strip away the detractors' misrepresentation of Jewish mission boards, okay, let's put that away. And ignoring of history, that the first followers of Jesus were all Jews and that Jesus was actually teaching Jews, okay? Let's get rid of that, okay, which is a big chunk of his argument. Looking at Isaiah's prophecy and how it could easily have been understood by loyal Jews during Jesus' time, we see that the virgin birth is perfectly consistent with prophecy, and there's no reason to believe that it is not referring to a virgin. Therefore, Jesus did fulfill prophecy, and the virgin birth is not some sort of pagan, some sort of plot in order to lure pagans into Christianity. So now let's pull up here and spend a little time with some of the comments because there are some interesting ones. Just moving some stuff around so I can see stuff here. And go to the comments corner here. There we go. The Restreet chat is up now, and we can see that. And so now you'll be able to see that. Now, my hope was eventually to get it to where you could see everybody's chat, but Restream seems to have some problems occasionally with that. And so that should be up here in a second. And we'll pull up some of the comments. I didn't get all the highs I wanted to out there, so shout out. It's good to have John Williams here. We're going to deal with a few things here. Elizabeth, you are always a joy. I don't want to forget, Steve, you are right on the spot. And of course, we have the other Magic Blue Wrench, our man, Nate, who is launching his own station and doing stuff. I am excited for you, Nate. That's really great. You can go ahead and throw that up there. And so that's the other person who is moderating there. Um, um, I'm not understanding everything here. Isaiah 7:14 is a very complicated chapter in prophecy because God is speaking to Ahab directly. In the first part of the prophecy deals with Ahab, where Ahab is told to ask for a sign, and he says, "I don't want to," because God might answer. And then the second part of the prophecy deals with the Davidic line, because the threat to Ahab is also a threat to the Davidic line. And so what you might be referring to is this kind of dual nature to this. Um, if you're referring to Isaiah 7, which you may not be referring to, you may be referring back to your references to Zechariah, which are not showing right now in the chat, but were in previous chat. I can go down to them, but because of the delay, I don't know that the section will show up. You have the picture of Joshua the high priest and Zechariah there, and then you have future prophecy. And again, you're dealing with the the captivity and the coming back. And so some people would like to conflate Jesus with the Joshua there because of the similarity of the names, but the son of would indicate that probably is best not done. And so I'm not quite getting the juxtapositioning here because of the way these things are falling. All prophecy kind of appears at a secret of the time, and that's what we were discussing on Phil's show, that you have to take prophecy in light of other prophecy. And you have to take prophecy in light of, does it fulfill the conditions of the prophecy, or is it inconsistent with the conditions of the prophecy? Because what they were doing is they were looking at it through a lens. Okay, thanks for the clarification, because it's a little hard to follow with Joshua being there and then the breakup in the verses there. In answer to your question, yes. Jesus does claim, when he claims to be the one coming back on the clouds, he's referring to Daniel and the night vision in Daniel 7. And I can turn to that. And that's what he's referring to when he says, "You will see me returning with the clouds of glory." And that's really where the key is. Let me go ahead and see if I can pull that up. Daniel 7. I'm not going to try to pull up Logos, but one thing I still can do with Logos, I can still access my Hebrew and English Bible because they're downloaded onto my phone. So I downloaded my Greek and my Hebrew and I think a Septuagint onto my phone so that when I'm listening to preaching, I can just have a blast following the original languages. Here we go. You go down further. Here we go. Daniel 7, 13 and 14. I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man, coming with the clouds, came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him before him, and to him, that's the Son of Man again, was given glory and dominion and glory and a kingdom that all peoples and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will not be destroyed. When Jesus says that I'm going to return, coming in the clouds, it's a reference to this. In fact, there's even a rabbinical name for Messiah that goes back to this particular passage where Messiah is called the one who comes in the clouds. Okay, well, the King James does take some liberties. So that's why I'm not necessarily the King James only. I'm not going to get into that argument, but let's just say that originally I really kind of like the Greek and Hebrew. So I'm really partial to it. So I kind of like the original languages. Um, and you went back to Jeremiah, and as you see, that rabbinical Yemenite midrash actually goes back to that passage in Jeremiah, which, by the way, there's a broadcast about, and goes ahead and deals with it and points out that it does tie into divinity. So you really have a rabbinical midrash from the Yemenites that actually points to the divinity of Messiah there. I can point to other rabbinical writings that take the Jeremiah 23, 5, and 6 and indicate Messiah's deity. Um, so that comment was there. Okay. Alrighty. You will see in the chat the link for 5 o'clock this Sunday. Anthony Rogers and I, Trinity in the Old Testament. And if you're live, by the way, I have been looking into the Zoom meeting things. I didn't know whether to bring Zoom into OBS or OBS into Zoom, or Zoom directly to Restream, or Restream to Zoom. And so I've been working with that. And so I'm hoping to do this maybe more as a Zoom format and have some guests in the near future. And maybe even like open it up for folks to get on and do that if we want to make it more of an interactive study. One of my goals would be to see that sort of interaction we have in the chat and, maybe allow some of that. So I'm working through which program goes to which encoder and then goes out to where. So that's been kind of an experience for me. I could say a quick question for the community. Would you prefer a Zoom format? I could still, do this sort of way and use Zoom and use screen share, and that would allow it. I want to use it particularly to have some people on the show, so that's where things are there. I don't see any new comments up on the board, but I'm thrilled everyone's here. I'm sorry. I like it to be professional. We just had that weird echo thing happen. And every so often, I am mystified by technology. So, well, I can leave the chat up and we could start. I'm going to start getting ready to kind of say goodnight. Now, I might leave the chat for a little bit and just kind of get ready here. And you guys are great. We have seen some more subscribers. I hope they like this despite the problems that we had tonight. And we did pick up, I think, 3 subscribers because of Phil. So we are growing again, and it's exciting to see us growing. I hope that continues and that grows even more. And maybe some of the folks on Ring will eventually join us here. Wouldn't that be great? I think what I will do is go to the next screen. I do want to give a shout out to everyone. So let me put the screen up to give a shout out. Again, if you support us through Chosen People, that's great. By the way, thanks for all the advertising with Patreon. I really appreciate it. Some of you who saw me on Phil Fox's show also advertised my Patreon page. Thank you for advertising the Chosen People link. You can thank Nate. He figured out how to get our Chosen People link in the chat, and I learned incredibly through that. So that was really exciting to me, and I'm kind of thrilled by what I learned through that. And John Williams is just pointing out that the King James tends to try to help us out too much. So I wanted to get to the closing, but I will indeed leave up the comment. One of the ways to do the comments and that, yes, the King James does try to help us. They are trying to be helpful, but it can't work again. So thank you, Nate, for putting the links up, for the advertising. All you guys are great. Thank you for telling people to hit the like button. That makes YouTube feel really good, and it makes me feel good. If you hit not like or not John Williams, Jack Ryan, we hope you all great job with the link. So, now I used to have music with this, but I think my music. Someone said that the music was from a free source, but someone kind of said ick to that. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and say goodnight, all, as the credits continue to roll. Okay. And what I wanted to say is I hope to see many of you tomorrow.